Warning: contains somewhat mature content, including language, brief violence, and mild sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 14.
I awoke the next morning very slowly as usual. I went through my standard routine and left to catch the bus, getting a seat by myself again, and then arriving at school. I planned on walking around for a bit like I normally did, but that didn't happen this morning. I walked through the hall just thinking and looking at my feet, when suddenly someone put their arms around my waist from behind. I nearly jumped out of my skin, almost screaming from shock. I heard a small chuckle from the person, and I realized it was Rain.
"I told you," he said softly. "I'll only scare you by either sneaking up on you or putting my cold hands under your shirt."
I just stood there, not speaking. I couldn't speak. My heart was beating too fast. I took a few deep breaths, trying to muster up the courage to say something. He beat me to it, however.
"Why so silent?" he asked. "Did I scare you too badly?"
He pressed his lips to my neck, which made it even harder to try and speak. I did, however, manage to squeak. I was just glad no one else was in that hallway at the time. Rain laughed and spun me around, smiling wide.
"That was so cute!"
"Why?" I asked, stuttering slightly. I was really nervous now that I could see his flawless face. Rain blinked.
"Why what? Why was it cute?"
he asked. I shook my head, taking a deep breath. Why are you treating me like this?" I managed to say. Rain shrugged.
"Would you rather me not pay attention to you at school?"
he asked. I didn't know how to answer to that, so I just changed the subject. "Were you wearing lip gloss yesterday?" I demanded. He nodded.
"Did I accidentally leave some on you? Sorry, it's not supposed to rub off on anything,"
he replied calmly. He acted as if guys wearing lip gloss was normal. "Yes, you did!" I exclaimed. "I would have been killed if my parents noticed it. Luckily they didn't, though." Rain furrowed his brow.
"Why would your parents care?"
he asked. "Because they'd think I was homosexual," I said, annoyed. He should already know that.
"And they'd care if you were homosexual because... why?"
I gawked at him. That was the stupidest question I've ever heard. "Because," I said angrily, "it's a sin. If I was homosexual, I'd go to hell for sure. And if they ever thought I was homosexual, they'd probably have me exorcised or put in a mental institution." Rain looked very depressed all of a sudden. He even hung his head a bit, which made me less angry and more concerned.
"Oh, you're a very serious Catholic?"
he asked quietly. I nodded. Of course, why? I was beginning to feel depressed just seeing him so miserable. I didn't even know what was wrong with him. Rain shook his head.
"That means you and your parents..."
He couldn't seem to get out what he was trying to say. Then suddenly, he grabbed me and pulled me into a tight and very close hug.
"Even if you're Catholic, there's still a possibility you're homosexual, Cole."
He actually sounded frantic, almost like he was going to start crying. I sort of wrapped my arms around him and hugged him back. "Rain, don't get upset. Why do you care so much whether I'm straight or not?" I asked him. He pulled away slightly and looked at me. Then suddenly he kissed me again. It was a much deeper kiss this time. I wanted to pull away, but once again, I just kissed back. Finally, I got the nerve to break it and step away from him, wiping my lips. "Stop doing that!" I said, looking around to make sure it was only us in the hall still. Rain frowned, watching me.
"Cole, don't you think you just might not be straight?" he asked quietly. I think you're just scared about what other people will think, right?"
I shook my head furiously. "Rain, stop it! I don't want to think that way." I was beginning to feel quite warm and dizzy. Rain sighed and approached me again. My first instinct was to back away, but my legs wouldn't move. He set his hands on the small of my back, then pulled me close so our hips touched. I ended up getting excited again, just like yesterday when he fell on top of me. He noticed this time too, but I think he actually meant to do it. He held me there, setting his chin on the top of my head. I didn't know what to do. All that I know was that I actually didn't want to move, but I was scared to death.
"You might not want to think that way," he muttered, "but you might think that way whether you like it or not."
My hands, which were at my sides, found themselves to Rain's pants pockets, and they gripped them tightly. I don't know why I was holding on to his pockets, but it was the urge I had to fulfill at that moment. He chuckled softly at that, and I ended up blushing fully once more. Just then the bell rang and he pulled from me quickly as a bunch of students came down the hall.
"Let's go play some basketball, Cole,"
he said as if nothing had happened. We went into the locker room together. I didn't know what to say to him, or even what to think of him. I didn't know if I should consider him my friend or not. I went to my locker and unlocked it, fishing out my PE clothes. I began getting undressed like always, but ended up giggling madly very suddenly. Don't think I'm crazy. I didn't start giggling for no reason. Rain had come over to me while I had my shirt off and began tickling my sides. I'm very ticklish, so I nearly fell on the floor laughing. I kind of did fall, but Rain caught me.
"Whoa, be careful, bud,"
he said. I looked up to see his face looking at me upside down. He smiled. I actually let a smile spread on my face as well, even though I felt really sick. I haven't laughed like that in so long. It gave me a nauseated feeling in my stomach. Rain helped me up again so I could finish undressing. He didn't go back to his locker, though. I don't know why. He just stood there only in his underwear, waiting or something.
"Hey, Rain,"
said Nate, him and his cronies already dressed. "You coming or what?" Rain waved his hand.
"Go on without me," he replied casually. "I'll be there in a second."
I looked over at Rain, holding my PE clothes in my hands. He watched as all the guys left the locker room and went into the gym. We were the only ones left. He suddenly hugged me from behind, resting his head on my shoulder. "What are you doing?" I whispered frantically, heart pounding like crazy. He gave me a sort of nuzzle, then tightened his arms around me. I felt so strange. It might have been because we were both in only our underwear.
"I want you to try your best today," he said softly. "Don't let Nate and the guys get to you, okay?"
I hesitated, not expecting him to say that. Then I nodded, and he let go of me.
"Better hurry and get dressed or we'll be late."
I jumped into my PE clothes and waited for him to finish getting dressed as well, and we went into the gym together. All the way I wanted to ask him why he was so affectionate towards me, but I was too embarrassed to. We got into the gym just in time. Mr. Frey had only just started roll call. After he was finished, he sent our teams to our courts for the basketball games, and we started to play. Nate and the rest were still reluctant to pass me the ball, but every time Rain got the ball, he passed it to me no matter what. "Rain, damn it! Stop passing it to Cole!" Nate shouted angrily, but, once again, Rain ignored him. Each time he passed me the ball, he'd tell me,
"You can do it, Cole! You can make a basket!"
He was trying to motivate me, but I don't think he understood how much I sucked at sports, especially basketball. Each time he told me to shoot, I tried and missed. I tried to shoot again, but a player from the other team grabbed it right away before it barely even left my hand. Rain did something pretty funny, though. He went over and popped his hip out against the player's hip and knocked him down. The ball got tossed into the air and he handed it to me, then hoisted me up onto his shoulders and ran over to the hoop.
"Put it in, Cole,"
he said to me. I hesitated, staring at the hoop that was sitting right in front of my face. Then I just set the ball inside, and Rain cheered, lowering me back to the floor. "No, no, no," said the captain of the other team. "That must be a foul of some sort. No point." Rain laughed.
"It doesn't matter," he said. "You can make it count or not. What matters is he made a basket. He finally did what he's never been able to do."
"He made a basket because you lifted him up," said Ricky angrily. "What is wrong with you?" Rain frowned.
"All right. I bet that Cole can make it from the free throw line without my help," he said.
The other team's captain nodded.
"All right,"
he said. "If Cole makes it, your team automatically gets 10 free points. If he misses, we get 10 points." Nate gasped. "Hell no! No deal!" he said, but Rain pushed him aside.
"Deal," he said. "Cole will make it. I know he will."
He came over and handed me the ball, pushing me to the free throw line. The rest of our team hated us both at that moment, I could tell. I stood there with the ball in my hands, staring at the basket. It seemed so far away. I was scared. I knew if I didn't make it, Nate and the rest of them would hate me even more than they already did. Rain came up behind me and whispered in my ear.
"You can do it," he said softly. "You'll make it as long as you think you'll make it. Make it for me, Cole. Just think of me when you shoot. Trust me."
I was blushing again, still staring at that stupid hoop. I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking about Rain and how he's been so nice to me for the short time that I've known him. I felt like I could trust him, even though he was constantly making me worry about my orientation. I opened my eyes again, seeing the entire court staring at me. I concentrated on the basket in front of me and tossed the ball. I made it in! Rain cheered and picked me up in a bear hug, and the rest of the team gaped at me as if they'd just witnessed a miracle. After that, we continued our game, my team winning now because of me. Rain still kept passing to me, and I kept trying to shoot again. Amazingly, twice out of 5 times I tried shooting, I made it, and one was from the half-court line. Finally, it was time to go back into the locker room and get dressed again. Rain kept congratulating me, telling me I could do anything I set my mind to, but really I think the only reason I made the baskets was because he was there. I began taking off my uniform and getting dressed back into my jeans and white button-up shirt. I would have worn blue today, but all my blue shirts were dirty. While I was buttoning up my shirt, I glanced at Rain, who was putting on another black muscle shirt. I almost thought it was the same one as yesterday, but then I saw this little pink cat face on the shirt. I smiled, thinking it was a very cute cat face. Rain saw me looking and smiled at me, making me blush like an idiot once more. I must have blushed at least 100 times in the past 3 days. Rain chuckled at my blush, grabbing his backpack and moving over to me.
Ready, little cherry?
He asked me. I furrowed my brow and hit his chest. Shut up, I said. I looked at my hand, as it was throbbing from hitting him. I hoped to God I didn't hurt him, but he was still smiling. I guess it didn't hurt him at all. I was relieved. He took my hand gently, looking around to make sure no one was watching, and then kissed it gently and put it down.
Come on, let's get out of here,
he said, moving to leave the locker room. I locked my locker and grabbed my backpack, following him. We waited in the hall together like the day before yesterday. Nate kept trying to get Rain to hang out with him and his friends, but he practically ignored them. I stood there, feeling kind of awkward, staring at my feet. Rain was leaning against the wall, watching me. I couldn't see him looking at me, but I could feel his eyes on me. I chanced to glance at him and saw that he was looking at me. He smiled, his nice crooked smile.
You're so quiet and lonesome, he said. What's wrong?
I shrugged. I'm always quiet, I said. That's why I don't have any friends. Rain frowned.
I'm your friend, Cole, he said quietly. In fact, I'm your best friend.
I stared at him, not believing what he was saying. You're really my best friend? I asked him, actually letting a smile play on my face. He nodded.
If you want me to be,
he said. I nodded, hanging my head to hide my smile, which wouldn't go away. The bell rang and Rain gave me a brief hug.
See you later,
he said, and went off to his class. I hurried off to math, covering my mouth with my hand, still smiling. I had crazy butterflies in my stomach. My classes up until lunchtime were quite uneventful. I was looking forward to lunch, for I was really hungry. I hurried into the line to get my lunch and sit down. Suddenly, Rain sat down next to me. I looked at him, blinking. What are you doing? I asked. Don't you sit with Nate and them? Rain laughed.
I have several reasons to sit with you, he replied. All that happens over there is Nate talks about sex constantly, Sean tries explaining the scientific terms for reproductive organs, Ricky laughs at this fish he keeps seeing swimming around his head that no one else can see, and Lionel picks his nose. Besides, I wanted to sit with my new best friend.
I smiled at him, opening my juice. I looked at his lunch, which was in a paper bag. You bring your lunch? I asked. Rain nodded.
When I ate the cafeteria food at my old school, I got sick, he replied. Ever since then, I don't trust any food sold at schools.
I nodded, laughing slightly. This food is actually all right. The juice is actually made from fruit instead of water, sugar, and food coloring. Rain laughed at that, taking out a little plastic bag full of brownies. He took one out and offered it to me.
Have one, I made them myself,
he said. I took the brownie and looked at it. I bit into it and chewed, smiling. It was the best thing I had ever tasted. It's really delicious, I said, and Rain laughed.
It has chocolate chips and caramel in it, he said. My own secret recipe.
I ate the rest of the brownie and looked at the bag with the rest of them. Rain chuckled and handed the bag to me.
Here, knock yourself out.
But these are yours, I said, frowning. Rain shook his head.
If you want to know the truth, I brought them for you anyway. I wanted to see how you liked them, he said.
I smiled and began munching the brownies. Rain watched me for a while, smiling. After a few minutes, he put his leg over mine, playing with my foot gently. I blinked, watching him.